Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Fascinating matchup in the SEC. Tennessee heading on the road to play Arkansas. And it's no secret that this Tennessee Vols program, one, has been on a warpath to start the 2024 season. Coming off a bye, they'll be the favorites in this football game. I don't think many Arkansas fans would probably argue with that. That being said, we've kind of talked about this with this Arkansas team throughout the 2024 season, even going back to the offseason. The ceiling for this Arkansas team from a game-to-game basis is relatively high. And I think because you have a quarterback like Taylen Green, because you have some difference makers on the defensive side of the football, I think there's a pathway for Arkansas to upset Tennessee. Now, am I getting up here and predicting an upset? No, probably not. But I do want to have a conversation of what can Arkansas do to keep them in this football game and maybe make this game a close game in the fourth quarter and potentially come out with a win. Fascinating conversation. Fired up to get into it. Now, before we do, and as always, whether you're an Arkansas fan, Tennessee fan, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. That is the beauty of doing this. Appreciate y'all rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And I think it starts with Taylen Green. We said this heading into the off season, heading into 2024, and I think it certainly remained true for this Arkansas team. Taylen Green gives you the ability to win at a very high level in the SEC. Like, has Taylen Green been perfect? Has he been very consistent? No and no. That being said, the highs that Taylen Green can bring to this Arkansas offense, it's certainly there. Taylen Green is top 20 in the country in big time throws. You take a look at the rushing numbers: 25 missed forced tackles on the season, 17 runs of 10 plus yards. He's a quarterback that can make those game changing plays for Arkansas throughout a football game. Now, the conversation is, can we have the highs of Taylen Green, the big time throws, the explosive rush plays, but then also eliminate those game changing plays in the opposite direction, right? The sacks, the turnovers, and kind of some of the misreads that we've seen from Taylen Green over the last couple of weeks. And there's kind of a conversation of how can you put Taylen Green in the best situation to be successful. And I'll give Bobby Petrino a ton of credit. Like, I think he has put Taylen Green in a lot of spots for him to be successful. You've seen Taylen Green to get outside the pocket. You've seen this offense, I should say, lean into Taylen Green in his athleticism. And quite frankly, I think there's been a lot of throws there for Taylen Green that he's just not reading the right way and probably leaving a lot of plays on the football field over the last couple of weeks. Now, what are some ways that this Arkansas offense can attack this Tennessee defense? I think it starts with you probably got to move the pocket in this football game. What we saw from Arkansas on the offensive line against Texas A&M, I think it's concerning. And granted, Texas A&M is a very good defensive line. I think they have multiple guys that will be playing on Sundays over the next couple of months. But the fact of the story is Tennessee does too. I think Tennessee has one of the better defensive lines that we see in this conference, and quite frankly, the country. You don't want Taylen Green dropping back in the pocket all that often in this football game because a couple of different reasons. One, the offensive line, specifically at that right tackle stock with Blastock, it's been a problem. And guys like James Pierce or Joshua Joseph for Tennessee, they're probably going to have their way with that matchup. But I think secondly, like, you look at Taylen Green as a quarterback and say he's a guy that wants to get outside the pocket. You can tell that he's not very comfortable sitting in the pocket and going through his progressions anyways. So if you're Bobby Petrino, you're looking at this matchup and saying, one, I don't really trust my offensive line to hold up consistently in pass protection. I also have a quarterback that's clearly not that comfortable sitting in a pocket and going through his progressions. You got to lean into Taylen Green's skill sets and probably move the pocket a little bit and go let him be an athlete and try to neutralize this Tennessee pass rush in some different ways. I think secondly, I think the ball has got to come out pretty quick. Tennessee secondary has been quite good for the question marks that some of us might have had for Tennessee heading into the season. That being said, we haven't seen a ton of offenses test Tennessee tackling in space. They have some really talented guys in the defensive back room, but some of them are a little smaller. Some of them are a little bit more inexperienced. if you're Bobby Petrino in Arkansas and you're looking at how to successfully throw the football against Tennessee, one, you want to have some quick reads for Taylen Green. You want to get the football out of his hand relatively quickly. You got some guys on the outside, Andrew Armstrong, Isaiah Satanga, who can operate with the football in their hands. That's probably the avenue. Like, ball out quick, test this Tennessee secondary in terms of their ability to tackle in space. And I think, secondly, Taylen Green just has to be a little bit better with his reads, whether it's just the read option, reading that edge rusher, whether it is going through his progressions more quickly and actually letting go of the football. I mean, there's been times where you look at Isaac Tesla, for example. Like, I think he's been open on a couple of reps, and Taylen Green's just not getting the football out of his hands. So I think where you want to start with this conversation, the pathway for Arkansas to stay in this football game and potentially win, you got to have the best game of the season by Taylen Green, and it probably can't be close. And again, Taylen Green's a guy that has all the talent in the world to play at a very high level, but you need to get a complete game from Taylen Green. And I do think there are some things that Bobby Petrino can do to help Taylen Green be as comfortable as possible against this Tennessee Vols defense that I think is very good. Number two on offense, you got to get back to the balance. I thought this was something they lost against Texas A&M, and quite frankly, I was a little bit surprised they didn't lean on the run game more throughout that football game. One, because the pass rush was so ferocious from Texas A&M. Like, it became pretty clear that Arkansas was going to have struggles pretty much all game blocking up this Texas A&M pass rush. I would expect to see some more struggles from this Arkansas offense. I don't think it gets better in 7 days all of a sudden. Yeah, I think you can clean up some of the, blown assignments on the offensive line, but guys like Joshua Josephs and Norman Lott on the inside, and obviously Pierce, like, they're going to have their way with this Arkansas offensive line. Why I'm saying that is you got to be able to run the football and stay out of those third and long situations, because when Arkansas is in those 3rd and 8+ spots where it is obvious passing situations and Tennessee starting to pin their ears back and get after the passer, that's not where Arkansas wants to operate. And you look at the poor numbers from Arkansas against Texas A&M on third downs, I think largely it came from the lack of execution and the negative plays that they had on first and second down. And so if you're Arkansas, the best way to stay on schedule to stay in those third and reasonable situations, got to get back to running the football. Jaquindon Jackson, I mean, he's been carrying the football very well for Arkansas. This Tennessee Vols defense is very hard to run the football on. They're top 5 in the country in terms of yards per rush allowed. That being said, you don't have to run for 200 yards against Tennessee's front seven. I don't think Arkansas can do that. But you got to figure out a way to stay in those third and short situations where Bobby Petrino can be creative with his play calling. You have the run, you have the pass available. You're not in those obvious third and long situations where that's where Tennessee wants to get Arkansas to be. On the defensive side of the football, and look, Tennessee's offense, it's really good. It's multidimensional. It can attack you in a couple of different ways. The storyline that I'm looking for is, can Arkansas take away the rushing attack of this Tennessee defense? Like, when people think or Tennessee offense, excuse me, when people think of Josh Heupel, this Tennessee offense, they think of Nico. They think of talent on the wide receiver room, which is all fair. Like, Nico, I think, is a very good quarterback. I think they have difference makers on the outside. That being said, throughout the first 4 games of this Tennessee season, Tennessee's running the football 67% of the time. That's 5th most in the country. They want to run the football. You haven't seen Nico throw over 30 pass attempts in a single football game to start this 2024 season. If you're Arkansas, let's see if Nico can go out and win this game on the road at night. I'm not saying he can, because I think Nico's a very good quarterback, and I think they have difference makers on the outside. But you look at Arkansas's front seven and say, Landon Jackson, not only a really good pass rusher, but he's one of the better edge defenders stopping the run in the country. You look at linebacker Xavier Sawyer, I think he's playing like an all SEC caliber linebacker. Eric Gregory on the inside. I think they have dudes in the front seven to potentially slow down this Vols rushing attack. We haven't really seen Tennessee have to really lean on Nico throughout the 2024 season. Again, this is a conversation, Tennessee fans. I ain't saying that Nico can't do that. I think he's very capable of it. But if you're Arkansas, you're probably looking to make Nico do that to win this football game on the road at night at Arkansas. Those are probably the pathways for Arkansas to win this football game. And again, this is an Arkansas team that it's been a roller coaster, but you know that the ceiling of this Arkansas team, I think, can give some of the top teams in the SEC some problems. Now, the question mark for Arkansas is, we're a roller coaster. Can we stay on that high for 4 quarters of a game? Because you got to do that against Tennessee again. I think a legitimate fourth best team in the country. I think they're a legitimate national title contender. If you want to beat Tennessee at home, one, you got to start fast. You want to keep this crowd in it for all 4 quarters, but you have to stay fast. You want to start fast to stay fast. You want to keep the highs. Taylen Green, you're going to have his best game of the season. Bobby Petrino going to have to be in his bag against the Tennessee defense that can get after you in a lot of different ways. But again, I think what's exciting, and we've said this all year, like Arkansas, they're must-watch TV because they can play at a very high level. It's not always at a high level. We haven't seen the consistency very many games for all 4 quarters, but if they can find that consistency at the highest level for all 4 quarters, I wouldn't be surprised if you fast forward to midway through the third or fourth quarter and say this might be a football game in Razorback Stadium. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you guys later. Peace.